In a remote wildlife reserve, an abandoned little boy sat alone on a dirt path, his cries echoing through the early morning mist. As the sun slowly rose, a large lion named Hugo spotted him. The lion's eyes locked onto the child, and he let out a deep roar as he started moving in the boy's direction. What happened next is beyond belief. Hugo, the massive lion, circled the boy, his tail swaying and his mane rustling in the breeze. The child's sobs grew louder, and there wasn't a soul in sight. Hugo's imposing figure moved back and forth, as if contemplating his next move. Suddenly, he paused, staring directly at the boy's tear-stained face. The lion's roar echoed again, but this time, there was an intensity in his eyes, a glimpse of something familiar. Years ago, Hugo had been rescued as a cub by a young caretaker named Lucas, after he was found curled up next to his deceased mother, a victim of poachers. Too vulnerable to survive alone, Hugo was taken under Lucas' care. The ranger worked tirelessly to raise him, waking at all hours to feed the cub and ensure his safety. Having worked at the reserve since he was a teenager, Lucas knew that if Hugo became too attached to humans, he might struggle in the wild. So as soon as the cub was healthy and strong, Lucas introduced him to a pride led by a lioness who had just given birth. This lioness, though protective, was gentle by nature. Lucas hoped she would accept Hugo as one of her own. To his relief, she did, and Hugo found a new family within the pride. Over the years, Hugo grew into a strong and dominant lion. Eventually, as all male lions do, he separated from the pride to roam the reserve alone, developing his territory and asserting his dominance. Lucas continued to watch over Hugo, knowing how challenging life could be for a lone lion. Though the reserve was vast and provided safety from poachers, there was always a risk of territorial conflicts with other lions. Lucas' bond with Hugo was unbreakable, as he had raised him from a cub, and he couldn't help but track his movements closely. Recently, the reserve had seen breaches in its boundaries, and poachers had attempted to enter. It was a troubling development, and Lucas was doing everything he could to strengthen the reserve's defenses. One early morning, Hugo awoke to the sound of distant cries carried by the breeze. Curious, he followed the sound, and his senses led him to the boy sitting on the path. The child, no older than 4, was wearing a blue jacket with the hood pulled over his head, hiding his face as he sobbed. Hugo approached cautiously, circling the child, his eyes never leaving him. But as he got closer, a familiar scent drifted in the wind, and Hugo's instincts flared. Just as Hugo paused, another lion emerged from the bushes, its eyes fixed on the child. Hugo's roar thundered through the reserve as he charged, leaping over the boy and attacking the intruder. The two lions clashed, but Hugo, larger and more powerful, quickly overpowered the rival. Lucas, who had been patrolling the reserve, heard the commotion and raced toward the scene. When he rounded the corner, he saw 2 lions fighting fiercely, with a small child caught in the middle. Lucas' heart raced as he saw the child so close to danger. As a wildlife ranger, he'd seen many fights between lions, but this was different. There was a human life at stake. He had no idea how the boy ended up in the reserve, but he knew he had to act fast. Accelerating his jeep, he sped towards them. The other lion, realizing it was outmatched, retreated, leaving Hugo standing protectively over the boy. Lucas cautiously approached, knowing he needed Hugo's trust to get close. Hugo, remembering the man who had saved him as a cub, stood his ground but allowed Mark to edge closer. Slowly, the ranger extended his hand, speaking softly. The massive lion's eyes met his, and after a moment's hesitation, Hugo moved aside, giving Lucas space to scoop up the child. Carrying the boy back to his jeep, Lucas felt a wave of relief. The child clung to him, his small arms wrapped around Lucas' neck. With Hugo walking by his side, Lucas drove carefully back to the reserve's office, his mind racing. Who had left the child here, and why? Once safe at the station, Lucas reviewed the CCTV footage, hoping to find answers. What he discovered left him stunned. A car had stopped just outside the reserve's boundary early that morning. A young woman emerged holding the child. After scanning the area, she found a weak spot in the fence and entered, placing the child on the dirt track. She kissed him gently on the forehead before hurrying back to the car and driving off. Lucas' heart ached as he watched the footage. The woman's actions seemed desperate, but there was tenderness in her movements. It was clear she felt she had no choice. But why abandon the boy in such a dangerous place? Did she hope that the reserve's security would spot the child quickly? Lucas could only guess at her reasons. The boy, who later told Lucas his name was Sam, had calmed down after being fed. As Lucas tried to ask him questions, Sam pointed outside, mimicking the roar of a lion. Lucas smiled, realizing the child's fascination with Hugo, the same lion who had just saved his life. The authorities soon arrived, and Lucas explained the situation. They confirmed that if no relatives were found, Sam would be placed in foster care. Lucas felt a pang of sadness at the thought. Over the next few days, as the authorities searched for Sam's family, Lucas found himself growing attached to the boy. Sam reminded him so much of Hugo when he was young, vulnerable, alone, and in need of care. When the news came that Sam's family couldn't be located, Lucas made a life-changing decision. He offered to take temporary custody of Sam while the search continued. Lucas knew raising a child would be a challenge, but he couldn't bear the thought of Sam being sent away. As the weeks passed, Lucas and Sam formed a strong bond. They often went out for drives to see the lions, and Sam's laughter filled the Jeep each time they spotted Hugo. The lion, too, seemed to recognize the boy, occasionally glancing in their direction as they passed. Months later, after a long adoption process, Lucas officially became Sam's guardian. On their first drive together as father and son, they visited the spot where Sam had been found. Hugo was there, lounging in the shade. As the Jeep slowed, Sam waved excitedly at the lion, and Hugo, with a lazy nod, acknowledged the pair. Lucas smiled, knowing that his family had come full circle, from rescuing a lion cub to protecting a young boy. Life at the reserve wasn't conventional, but with Hugo and Sam by his side, Lucas wouldn't have it any other way. Lucas never imagined his life would transform into this beautiful family. It goes to show that when you do good for others, good things come back to you. This story is a perfect reminder of the power of kindness. Now, what to think about this heartwarming story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. See you in the next video.